What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I'm your hostess, doing the mostest, Kivanshi, and we are here with Found Season 2, Episode 3, Missing While Lonely. Okay, so it's been a few podcast eps since I've done like a what's going on with me, where are we checking in, and stuff like that. Well, today I find it very appropriate that when discussing a show about trauma, that I really am like forcing myself to get on this podcast and actually talk about this episode. Today I met with my therapist and we talked about two people who have traumatized me in my life, and I just been kind of like chill all day, and I was not even gonna record this. My Friday episodes are bonus episodes anyway. I'm just like, I could skip this and then I'll just combine episodes 3 and 4 next week. But then I looked at myself and I said, self, you have come so far with like being authentic and really just saying when you're not feeling like the best and not being okay. And I'm such a perfectionist, and we talked about that in therapy today, about me giving myself grace first and foremost, because I can expect it from everybody else. And so as I was contemplating just sitting on the couch, just chilling, going to bed early and everything like that, I was like, okay, you just talked about how you've come so far, how you above everybody else has been giving yourself grace. You have been working on your perfectionism, and being able to move and exist and push through even though everything is not like 100% or okay. I was like, okay, cool. I talked about it. I recognize it. I know I can do it. So I'll do it. And what better show to talk about while also like having had this appointment today at all. None of this was planned. But yeah, so I'm here. Hi everybody. Found Season 2. It's starting off with a bang, and episode 3 just continues to move the pendulum forward. Okay, in last episode we saw that Lacey was alive. Sir had her, and right when she was almost able to get away, she ended up hurting herself actually, and banged her head on the corner of the countertop where Sir was keeping himself and her while he was manipulating Gabi and all of M&A to find her, while also still solving cases. So where are we now in this episode? Let's find out. So naturally, as I've been saying on Twitter, I cannot stand any of the writers in the writer's room on Found, because we open up the episode with Trent looking beat up and giving a press conference saying that the chase to finding Lacey did not turn out the way that they expected. And Sir is seen on the phone with Gabi, and he says, no one will come between us ever again. It's just the two of us for the rest of our lives. Why would y'all do that? Why would, like, what? It's 22 episodes this season, and on episode 3 you started off like that. Like, are you insane? So out the gate I'm just like, Lord, Lacey cannot be gone. Like, Lacey cannot, don't do this to us. So let me go back to 36 hours earlier, which I love a good flashback within shows. It's kind of like reading the end of the book and then getting like that energy to be like, okay, how do we put all the puzzle pieces together? So 36 hours earlier, what were we doing? So everybody pulls up to where Sir was keeping Lacey, and they see blood everywhere. They are stressed. Gabi is panicking. She goes back to where like the phone booth was from when she had the phone call in the first episode, and she sees in the trash can where he kept the clues in that first episode that it's on fire. So she is like, oh my God, like he's getting rid of evidence. He's kind of moving differently than I would have expected him, and this does not bode well for Lacey at all. So the search and the grind and the crunch is still on Lacey, but of course the show is not called Finding Lacey, it's called Found. And so we still have to be able to solve other cases within this. But the best thing about Gabi's character is that she uses each case to send a cryptic message to Sir, because she knows that his primary motivations aren't to hurt her, and he believes in his delusional mind that he's actually helping. Sir ended up breaking into his brother Chris's car and was just like, dude, you are ruining everything for us. And Chris is like, Hugh, which is Sir's real name. He's like, look, I know you're not a bad person. I know you're not a killer. Like, you saved me from the fire. You even tried to save Mom, but it was just too late. Like, why are you doing this? You've been terrorizing Gabi for 20 years. And in this, you see that Chris, or Christian is his full name, but I'm calling him Chris. You see that he keeps referring to Sir by his real name in order to connect Sir's mind back to reality. And you get a brief moment where Hugh is trying to like fight to get through, but quickly he lashes out, and you get a little bit more glimpse into some of the abuse and some of the neglect that happened in their family, because he mentions, you know, I'm the messed up kid, I'm the one that Mom hated, and you're the one that she loved, and you always got to throw it in my face. So if you don't stay out of this, you're going to regret it. Of course, Chris goes to M&A and tells them about the encounter. So I know last episode, a lot of people were wondering, you know, what is Sir's brother's motivations? Is he in on it with his brother? You know, was he brought up the way that his brother was? But you get to genuinely see that he is concerned for Sir's like mental well-being. And Margaret, she's like, you know, I don't blame you for anything that he's doing now, but I do blame you for 20 years ago, because you could have said something when Gabi first got free. And I'm like, okay. And this is the start of Margaret continuing to get on my nerves. I said she had until episode 3 to get over herself, and she's not. I'm done. 20 years ago, he was also a child. Like, I don't understand what you are talking about and what your hang up is, and why you refuse to be understanding, and why you refuse to show grace to Gabi in this situation. And him. Sir was an adult when he took Gabi. He was a teacher. Okay, now let's say like early 20s, you know, people becoming fresh out of college, you got 22, 23-year-old teachers. Boom, I get it. But in the flashbacks that we know, Sir was like a solid 12 when his baby brother was born. And so to sit up here and be like, oh, well, I do blame you for then. Ma'am, adults don't even come to the police about assaults and crimes against themselves out of fear. And you're sitting over here talking to this adult person, telling him that you blame the boy, him, the child, that he didn't come forward all those years ago. Stop it. Done. But anyways, Christian was like, you know, he would never hurt anybody. He's not a killer. He's just warped. And I just really thought that I could get to him and get through to him. And everybody's all looking around, and Chris is like, what aren't y'all telling me? And that's when Gabi tells him, that fire that you're talking about, that you said that he tried to save y'all, well, the autopsy shows that your mom was stabbed to death before the fire, and it looks like he lit the fire to cover it up. So Chris is like, oh, I got to get the hell up out of here. Y'all done blew up his whole world. And Margaret's all mad at Gabi. She's like, you just letting him leave? And she's like, look, I can't. And Margaret's like, you can't what? You can't what? Keep him against his will? Kelli Williams, let me tell you something. You're doing a great job being a Karen, because I'm officially, like, I don't care. Whatever your whole storyline was, I don't even care about it no more. Go sit at the bus station every night. Like, do what it is that you do. I'm over it. I'm over you. The fact that you are hijacking other people's trauma to fit your narrative truly pisses me off. Now, there may be a lot of heat coming off of me because of what I said at the beginning of this episode, but like, it was already building up last week, and I didn't even have a therapy appointment last week. I'm over it. I'm over it. The new case finds us with Ivan, who is a prisoner, and he is in prison because he killed the woman who killed his daughter in a drunk driving incident. So in a fit of blind rage, he got retribution, and it was much like Emperor of Ocean's Park. You know what I'm saying? If you've seen the show, you know what it is. If you haven't, go ahead and listen to all of my recaps, okay? Say shameless plug. But while he was in prison, he met this woman named Betty who has a lot of freaking money, and in her grief and moving on from her dead husband, they ended up hitting it off, and for some reason they're now engaged. But now she's missing, and so Gabi and Trent are on the hunt with the police to try to figure out where Betty is, while Dhan, Zeke, and Margaret were focusing on Lacey. And Trent was all, I don't want to talk to you if it's not about Lacey. And she's like, look, keep your feelings inside, okay? If we focus on Betty, we can draw out Sir. This is a case where he's more likely to reach out to me because he sees himself in this prisoner. I can just tell how the prisoner is talking about Betty and how Sir would likely put himself inside of the story and put me in the story as well. So then of course Trent is like, well, fine, if it's not about Betty, if it's not about Lacey, then I don't want to talk. I'm just going to talk about this, and your 72 hours are over. So they meet with Ivan and they get more information, and they're trying to get like some suspects, this, that, and the third, while trying to figure everything out. But they don't really have too many leads other than the fact that Ivan seems to genuinely love Betty, and Gabi doesn't think that he had anything to do with her kidnapping. The first step that Gabi takes to draw out Sir is she goes and does a press conference, which is not abnormal for her. And in the middle of the press conference, she kind of like stutters and stumbles over her words a little bit. And a reporter asks her, you know, like, you've been under a lot of stress, you've been dealing with Lacey, like, how is all of this getting to you? And how are you able to continue to pursue other cases when somebody who you view as a sister is missing? And, you know, Gabi's like, you know, I love Lacey and we're going to continue to put our efforts on her, but right now this is about Betty. And as she's continuing to talk, she ends up passing out on live television. Sir is watching the whole thing and he is panicking because, like, that's his baby girl. We still don't really know the type of relationship that he wants to have. We just know that he's motivated by her being family in some weird, sick and twisted way. So he's stressed. And while he's stressed, we see Lacey on the floor, blood all over her head. But she's slowly like trying to regain consciousness, even though she's not fully aware of where she is. So Trent has Gabi on the couch, and, you know, he's touching her head and he's making sure she's good. And then she hops up and she was like, okay, I think that's good. And Trent is incensed, yo. He's like, are you fucking kidding me? You were faking? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you clue me in? This, that, and the third. She was like, look, I needed him to think that it was real, and I needed everybody else to think that it was real, and I needed you to have a genuine reaction. So now he's pissed even more at her manipulation tactics and all the lengths that she's going to find Lacey, to draw Sir out so that they can not only find Betty, but they can get a lead on where Sir is altogether. Here is Trent, the other one, getting on my goddamn nerves, making it all about him. And he's looking at her as if he doesn't know her. And honestly, at this point, you don't. You don't know her. And that is okay. But what you need to do is, again, stop making this about you. I need you to do police work. She told you she didn't want a relationship with you before all of this came out. So trying to piece all of your shit into this whole situation with her and trying to make it all like make sense and make fetch happen, just stop. It's annoying. You look weird, okay? Please stop. So here go Margaret again, getting on my last nerve. Her, Zeke, and Dhan are back at the place where Lacey and Sir last were. And I really like the use of technology and the respect for Zeke's condition with the agoraphobia, because they have him on FaceTime and he's looking at everything and he's getting like digital blueprints of everything so he can recreate the scenario and stuff that happened in the location. And the whole Margaret vision is like starting to come back, and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe it's back. And Dhan's like, oh, like, is everything good? She's like, yeah, you know, I have my powers back. It seems to only, like, you know, not work whenever Gabi's around. And it's like, and it goes back to last episode where she's like, you know, you broke me. And it's like, girl, you've been broken. You was broken when your son got taken. You broke every night that you go back to the bus station and you can't figure out where he is. You can find everybody else's missing loved one, but you can't find your own. And that was happening before you met Gabi. So what are we talking about? Because you're significantly older than Gabi. A solid 10 years. So what was you doing? What was you doing when she was 12? When she was 13? But now she's the reason that you're broken? Stop. Sir eventually loses his patience and he calls Gabi from Lacey's phone. And he's like, you know, I don't even understand why you don't even have Betty yet. Like, and honestly, I was looking at the press conference. You didn't have none of your friends by your side. Gabi, babe, it's me and you and me and you. None of them like you now that they found out your secret. But that's okay, because while everybody else will abandon you, I will stay by your side. All you need to do is work with me. Work with me. I wouldn't even have to take Lacey if it wasn't for you. Gabi, please come home to me. He didn't say all those words, but I'm literally close. And so Gabi's talking to him and she's trying to pull things out of him, but she ends up slipping up. And Sir hangs up on her and she has a complete panic attack because she realizes that in her own vulnerability and feelings of abandonment by her team, she opened herself up to a space where Sir could see that she was manipulating him with that whole stunt that she used. So now she's feeling like she is thrown backwards and she can't use him and manipulate him into helping her find Betty. So now she has to go back to the drawing board and put herself into the mind of him to try to figure this out with Trent. So in the meantime, while Gabi is stressed, she pulls those books that she got from episode 1 and she tells Dhan and Margaret and Zeke, look through all of this. There has to be something important in here. The only other thing more important than me is his books and his literature. So we need to figure out like what's going on, the clues and everything like that. And so she gives them a task while still working with Trent, trying to figure out like where Betty is. She interviews the son and she finds out that the son was trying to get a conservatorship, but it's not really what people are thinking. The son found out that Betty had the lawyer Mark make Ivan like the sole beneficiary to all of her things. And so because he was just worried about her and worried about her being taken advantage of by a convicted felon, he was just trying to get control of her estate so that she wouldn't make any rash decisions. And so it's kind of like they're circling and they're back at square one. So they go back to the prison to Ivan to see like what's up. They confront him about everything, like she's putting all this money on your books, you're basically bankrolling all of the prison people. And he's like, okay, so they're getting tissue and they're getting books and they're getting access to libraries and things of that nature. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, the state is not giving us a quality of life, and if she's gonna pad my books, I'm just sharing them with everybody else. Like, hello, I'm basically a prison philanthropist, a humanitarian. And they're like, okay, well, why did she leave everything to you? And he genuinely has like a shocked reaction of like, what do you mean? And so Trent and Gabi share a look, and he was like, if I would have known that she was thinking about doing that, I would have told her not to do that. I'm not in here because I'm some evil man or I'm some con man. I was a heartbroken father who made a rash decision, but I love this woman and she's so kind. I would never ever have her do that and risk what that could look like, not only for her but for me too. So they're going around in circles and they're trying to figure things out when Sir calls her again. And now Gabi is kind of like in her head and she has Sir on speakerphone and she's, you know, she mutes him and she's telling Trent, I need to do this right. So she's kind of speaking robotically, but Sir is matching her freak. So he's like speaking robotically too, and he's trying to steer her towards people who would try to keep them apart. Who in Betty's life is most likely to want her to be separated from Ivan, to want her all to themselves, and who has like a plot against her? And Gabi's kind of like playing along, but she mutes him every once in a while, and she's like, something is off, something is weird. So they finally get off the phone, and Sir is like, listen, babe, I have full faith in you. Like, you got this. It's like Romeo and Juliet, things of that nature. So she gets off the phone, and Trent is like, what was that? She was like, he's trying to steer us away from people. So Trent was like, so you don't believe him? She says, no. He's trying to tell me to look at everybody who would hate them. But Romeo and Juliet wasn't about people who hated them. They died because the priest who loved them and wanted them to find freedom within themselves and their own choices was the one who gave them the poison to begin with, not their families who killed them and tore them apart. So we need to be looking at people who love her so much that they would do anything, to include kidnapping and possibly killing her, just to keep her from somebody who they deem is evil. And they both realize the lawyer. So they rush to the lawyer's house, and they see the lawyer and his wife and Betty sitting in the living room. She gets up and she's like, oh my God, they've been keeping me for days. Like, shit is crazy. And Mark, the lawyer, is like, look, we just love her. We just wanted to protect her and all those other things. And he just roped his wife in on it, and she just did whatever he said. So now both of these dummies going to prison. And Betty is not only reunited with Ivan, but after talking to her son, and it actually like brought them closer, and her son finally decides that he wants to go to the prison and meet the man that she fell in love with. So the case is good. The case is all good to go. Sir is happy. You know, he keeping tabs. He doing all those other things. And so Gabi gets back with Zeke and everybody, and they're like, okay, what did you find in the books? This, that, and the third. And a message was there. So Gabi's like, oh my God, I know exactly what it is. I need y'all to go right back to where he last kept Lacey. I'm about to call Trent. Like, I know exactly what it is that he wants. And so they leave, and she's getting ready to, she picks up her phone to call Trent, but then she puts it right back in her pocket. She lied again. She goes home, and she's writing a letter, and she's like, if you're reading this, I am not here. I apologize that I had to lie to you all, but it's the only way to keep Lacey safe, and it's the only way to end all of this. And in the next shot, we see Sir sitting, looking at his iPad, and Gabi opens the door, and he was expecting her. So Gabi goes straight to Sir, straight to Lacey. She sees Lacey on the ground, and he's like, look, we're never going to be apart ever again. It's me and you. This is our companionship. And this is the first time we really hear a word that teeters on him wanting a romantic relationship versus wanting a family. Because in this episode, he also talked about, I am your family. And in this scene, I love them together. Mark Paul Gosselaar. Oh my God. Oh my God. He is so good. He tells her, I kidnapped you because I thought that you were unhappy, and I wanted to make your life happier. If I had known that I would make your life miserable, I would have never done it in the first place. I love you, and I just wanted us to be a family, and I thought that's what you wanted. So even in the same scene where he's talking about a companionship, he's also talking about family, and he's talking about saving her and rescuing her the way that he hoped and wished to be rescued so that he could have a normal family as well. So in this, it's like, you were an adult when you took her. Did you want a daughter? And she's an adult now. Do you want a spouse? And they keep dancing and intermingling their toxic, codependent, Stockholm syndrome relationship, that every time they're in a bubble together, you are truly just captured in their orbit, and you have no idea what it is. It's love, it's hate, it's longing, it's disgust, it's sadness, it's happiness. And as we're trapped in their gravitational pull, Lacey gets up and stabs Sir in the back. And so Gabi's like, Lacey, no. And He's like trying to get the knife out of his back when Lacey passes out. There's adrenaline. She has a serious and severe head injury. She passes out on the floor. Gabi is looking at Lacey. Gabi is looking at Sir. Both of them are wounded. She calls 911. She says, I need an ambulance now. So now we circle back to the way the episode opened up. Everybody's in the hospital. Trent is back giving a press conference. But we're able to finish the sentence where he says, while she is not dead, she's in critical condition and we don't know what it's going to look like for Lacey at this point. And so everybody's distraught, but her mom is there. Everybody's in the hospital bed and Lacey looks to be sleeping, not really in a coma or anything like that, but very much exhausted. We don't know how long she's been passed out since her head injury, but we do know that Sir was trying to keep her alive at least. And as Gabi is looking off into the distance, holding Lacey's hand and just lost within her own thoughts, Lacey squeezes back. So there's that. Found season 2 episode 3, Missing While Lonely. A thrilling 42-minute ride. Oh my god. One of the biggest things that I love in this episode, and honestly, it's like you know what the show is about, so you know they're not necessarily going to kill off like the main characters. But to leave you hanging and wondering what did Gabi do with Sir is so genius. As an audience member, you're like, okay, she obviously didn't kill him. I don't think that she killed him. But it's like, did she leave him to get arrested? Or did she help him escape before the ambulance came? And as we continue to dig deeper into their toxic codependency, and as we continue to see how she's able to think exactly like him, I'm going to lean with the latter, that she helped him escape and get to safety and get to a place where he can get care before Lacey was picked up by the ambulance. And I just look forward to continuing to watch the way that trauma surfaces in everybody. Like I already said before, everybody in the show is affected by trauma. Up until this point, I don't think Trent is affected by trauma. Trent said something in this episode that I didn't touch on in my recap, but I do want to bring this part to light with a prediction and my thoughts going forward. They're sitting in a car and he goes, you know, why didn't you tell me? And it's just like, you know now, and all you're doing is judging her, treating her like shit. And you sit here and you ask her, why didn't she tell you? What difference would that have made? You yourself have not been kidnapped. You have not been afflicted by kidnapping at all. And so you wouldn't even understand. And all of your actions right now is telling me that you lack empathy and you're unable and unwilling to put yourselves in the shoes of someone else in order to be able to understand why I didn't come to you in the first place. And Gabi expresses as much. What could you have done? How would you have understood that in our sick relationship and in the time that I was with him, I not only learned to love him, but I also hate him because he took me away from my father. My father did not look at me the same. He was affected with my kidnapping, and when he died, I lost it and I blamed him. And we see this type of relationship with Zeke and his own dad. They have a strained relationship because the kidnapping didn't just affect the person who was kidnapped. It affected the families as well here on out. So while she is the survivor of kidnapping, every interaction with up to that point with her dad, who she was a daddy's girl, every time he interacted with her, it was about his own guilt. He's drinking more. He can't look to her without feeling sorry, without feeling that he didn't do more to protect her and to keep her safe. Then when she comes back, you don't even know what to do and what next steps to take. How do you get back to normal? So Trent, what was she gonna say to you that would make you react differently than you're acting now? Nothing. And that's the biggest thing that infuriates me about this season, which is a good thing. I'm not like infuriated to the point where I'm like, I'm never gonna watch the show. It's such great writing, the way that the characters are doing a lot of background work with their own, the actors are doing a lot of background work with their own characters to really dig into these personality type and the type of decisions and the way that they emote and the way that they bring certain things to life, because it's very frustrating. When you've been traumatized, when you've been raped or you've been beaten or you've been emotionally manipulated and you've been gaslit and all these other things, the whole purpose of these people doing these things is to isolate you. Then for someone to come and say, why didn't you tell me? How does that help? What are you going to do now to help me heal? You asking me about the past, I've already been traumatized. I'm already hurt. The bruises and the scars are already here. You cannot undo that. Let's stick to the now. And in the now of things, Trent and Margaret specifically are digging the knife deeper and digging the guilt deeper to the point where it's victim blaming. Like, what the hell? So, I love it. It makes me mad, and I'm gonna be here the whole 22 weeks mad as hell. Like, oh my god, like, I'm so mad. And every Friday y'all get to be mad with me. Y'all get to be mad with me, and we get to have deep discussions about something that is very real. And I also love that the show comes on after Law & Order SVU, because it's like an extension. You got Law & Order SVU, and you oftentimes get like the aftermath. We'll touch on a little bit of the background of abuse, especially in cases where the abused kills or attacks or mutilates their abuser. It's like you roll into Found, and it's like, well, this is how that abused person came to these conclusions. So to have Law & Order SVU immediately followed by Found, and I love crime stuff. I love psychological stuff as well. I love getting into the mind of victims and perpetrators and stuff like that. It's always interested me. To have them back to back, if you're somebody who is an empath like me and you feel deeply, I'm not gonna lie, it's emotionally what's overwhelming. It's emotionally overwhelming. I'm overwhelmed now. I cannot wait to end this because I'm thinking about my own therapy session today. But yeah, it's overwhelming, but it grounds you. And I would just say, if you've never experienced like a trauma this deep, really watch as if it's your sister or your brother or your daughter or your son or yourself or a parent, so that you can really absorb the messaging that's happening here. Because above all, the messaging is, there is no right answer. There is no right way to be after experiencing trauma. And while people may come to you and come with these black and white situations, you will never know what you'll do until you're in the situation, until you love someone who is affected by that situation. And Found does a really good job at drawing the person who's never experienced that in life and connecting them with these characters to where they're like, oh my God, this is affecting a character that I care about. And we know how it is in real life. You can hypothetical everything, but then when it's your daughter, when it's your son, when it's you, it's your sibling, now all of a sudden you want the full extent of the law. And I love that Found kind of yo-yos you back and forth between these feelings. So that's gonna wrap up today's episode. Yeah, we're ending it on, this is a deep episode, but if y'all watch all my different episodes and podcast episodes, you already know, there's certain shows that I do weekly, so you can kind of dive in and out of some comedy, some horror, some movies, this, that, and the third. But yeah, I'm here and I'm sat every Friday for y'all. And with that, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave comments in the comment box below. You can follow me on Instagram at So There's That Podcast. You can also listen to me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you want to know my thoughts, all the live tweets and everything else that I'm watching these days, you can find me on Twitter at Kivonchi. And I will catch y'all in the next episode.